2-minute warning was like 1
Yeah,
minute.
that was like 30 seconds.
What do you mean?
You're early. You get another minute off.
I do? Terrific. So just for my own edification, Karen, is that where you're planning to sit in the future? I just want to make sure that everybody's,
The right spot.
Yes.
okay. All right.
Every single, this is the BCC.
That will be the BCC? Okay, good.
We'll discuss it at the meeting on Monday during the hurricane.
So good afternoon, everybody. Obviously, we and everybody else for the past couple of days has been tracking Tropical Storm Henri. And the latest forecast now calls for the storm to become a hurricane and to make landfall around Cape Cod and the south coast. That means we will probably see hurricane-force winds and significant storm surge around 3 to 5 feet in many of our coastal communities. And that brings with it, obviously, the possibility of some minor and significant coastal flooding. Additionally, most of Massachusetts is going to see a lot of rain, and many of our rivers and streams are already running high from the rain we've had already this summer. And that means we could see some flooding along and around most of the Commonwealth, and especially along the west side of the storm's track. And this could include flash flooding in urban poor drainage areas and possibly storm surge flooding along the south coast and the North Shore, depending upon the track that it takes. Given all of the rain we've seen recently, we all need to take this storm extremely seriously. And we did speak earlier today with Paul Ford, who's the regional administrator of FEMA, and I had a brief conversation with the FEMA director, Deanne Chiswell, to talk about their role and how they can assist us in dealing with this. And due to the current track of the hurricane, we're strongly recommending that all travelers delay any trips to the Cape and the islands, possibly until Monday when the storm moves out. Additionally, those currently visiting the Cape and Islands this week should consider leaving the Cape on Saturday or find a way to make plans to stay until Monday or Tuesday. The simple point here is we really would like everybody to be off the roads at the height of the storm, which will probably last all day Sunday and through until the early part of Monday. We don't want people to be stuck in the traffic on the Cape Cod bridges when the storm is in full force on Sunday. As we just saw yesterday, tropical storms and hurricanes can impact every part of the Commonwealth. Yesterday alone, we had drivers getting stranded and needed to be rescued. We would urge everybody to please use your heads and stay off the roads on Sunday. In the winter, we ask people not to crowd the plows. I was told earlier that the Weather Service talks about in a storm like this that people should turn around and not drown. In other words, don't drive into the giant puddles that will exist on many roads around the Commonwealth. Tropical storms and hurricanes are not just about the wind. The heavy rain and flooding it causes are dangerous to individuals and to communities. And right now, the forecast calls for just about all of Massachusetts to see significant rainfall and possible flooding. The track of the storm obviously can change slightly, so all residents should be paying attention to their local weather alerts and to the news stations and to other outlets, and to begin your preparations for this storm today. MEMA has good resources that everyone should check out, and we'll take steps that we can take to prepare for hurricanes and tropical storms. And you can visit mass.gov/MEMA to learn what you can do before, during, and after a hurricane or a tropical storm. We're also activating up to 1,000 members of the National Guard. You do always come when we call, and we really appreciate that. And they'll be ready to assist with high water rescue, debris clearing, and public safety support should it be necessary. The storm could knock out power for somewhere between 100,000 and 300,000 residents based on the current estimates. So we're also working with utilities and others to stage crews around the Commonwealth in the areas that have been the softest spots in previous storms. And we're also making Camp Edwards available to house thousands of utility workers on the Cape so that they can act fast to restore power when the winds die down. I also want to thank the utilities and the National Guard for acting fast to get that base ready. As a reminder, we could see power outages not just on the coast, but also much further inland as well, depending upon the track the storm takes. And we'll also be closing state pools, campgrounds, and other recreational areas early to help keep people off the roads and home in advance of the storm. I know that August weekends in Massachusetts are usually a great time to be outside and enjoy what's left of the rest of summer, but it looks like this storm is going to have a big impact on the Commonwealth, and we really would urge everybody to do everything they can to stay home on Sunday and to be mindful of the fact that the high winds and the rain that come with this storm will in fact create issues across the Commonwealth, and that everybody needs to be vigilant and careful about how they handle the back part of this weekend. And with that, I will turn it over to Secretary Tessler.
Thank you, Governor, members of the media, public, and good afternoon. We are asking everyone to take this storm seriously. The impacts of this storm will be widespread. Due to the significant amount of rain and high winds, everyone in the state, if possible, should plan to be at home by Saturday night and to plan to stay at home on Sunday. Regardless of the track of the storm, there will be sustained winds and heavy rain across the Commonwealth. As of now, Logan remains open and operational, but people should plan ahead and expect the possibility of cancellations. Passengers should check with their airline for their latest information on their flights. The MBTA will encounter some service changes, some suspensions, and some delays, and General Manager Poftak will speak to that in a few moments. The MBTA will also have tree cutting crews on standby. Water pumps, backup power generators are ready to be activated if necessary. And as I said, Steve Poftak will cover that in more detail in a moment. Water transportation will also be impacted by this storm. The Steamship Authority is monitoring the forecast, and although the track of the storm is still not definite, it currently appears that it will impact service to Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket on Sunday and potentially Monday. It is becoming more apparent that we will be looking at rough winds and seas through Monday. Please plan accordingly if you need to use the ferry service to the islands or from the islands. All public transportation travelers need to check schedules as the track of the storm remains uncertain, and a narrow corridor will be getting potentially up to 8 inches or even more of rain on Sunday into Monday, along with strong wind gusts. What we expect to see out there during the storm in some areas is debris on the ground, power lines and trees that have fallen, and water blocking travel on roadways. If you must travel this weekend, put your safety first. Make smart decisions. Turn around if you see water in the road. Get to where you need to be prior to the arrival of the storm. Plan ahead, prepare for outages, and expect flooding in low-lying areas. As we saw yesterday, crews made heroic efforts during heavy rain in areas of the Commonwealth, carrying people out of cars that were caught in floodwaters. But let's do what we can to not have to put first responders in the situation and have to make those rescues. Let's plan ahead and avoid water where possible. The Commonwealth is prepared for the worst of the storm that this storm can throw at us. The National Guard has been activated. We're deploying utility crews and staging logistics in the event that trees fall on the MBTA track corridors or on major roads. But let's do our part to stay at home and out of the way if possible. Customers should stay up to date by checking all available communication channels, our website, and our social media feeds. If you're driving, be prepared to put a full tank of gas in your car. You don't want to get out on the road and then have to stop in a storm like this for fuel. Traveling will be risky and drivers will face road hazards in many areas, so please plan ahead and stay home if possible. At this point, I'm going to ask General Manager Steve Poftak to share some remarks about the MBTA service.
Thank you, Secretary Tessler. I just want to echo and amplify what the Secretary's just shared with us. Particularly on Sunday, folks should not be out traveling unless they need to be out traveling, unless really the T will be operating on a reduced schedule, but it is really intended for essential travel only. We will be following this. This is a very dynamic storm. At the MBTA, we're impacted in a variety of ways, both by high wind gusts and as well as sustained winds, the level of rain that we are likely to see, and also potential storm surge and tidal impacts. So we will be monitoring those throughout the storm. We've already put a staffing plan in place. The Secretary shared some details of that, where we'll have assets and manpower in place to address issues that arise from this storm. But I do want to emphasize we will not put MBTA staff or contractors in harm's way. So there will be cases where we will not be able to address problems until after the storm has abated. We have been strengthening a number of the vulnerable spots we have at the T to those weather impacts we talked about. We will be deploying a defensive system around Aquarium Station, and we will eventually close that station when the team on the ground determines it appropriate to do so. We will be activating the portal at the Muddy River as well to guard the Green Line tunnels against water intrusion. We will be decreasing service levels across the board on the MBTA. That plan is still in development. I encourage you to check mbta.com as well as our various social media feeds for more precise information as that plan evolves on your specific route of travel. I can announce that for the entirety of the service day on Sunday, we will not be providing service on the Mattapan line, the D branch of the Green Line, and ferry service. All three of those services will be suspended for the entire service day on Sunday, and there will not be alternative transportation. So obviously, if folks who are regular users of that are going to need to make other plans. As this forecast evolves and as we understand more about what this weather system is going to throw at us, our plans will evolve, and we will both announce that to the press, but also, again, encourage people to use mbta.com and our social media, various social media feeds to get information on their specific travel plans. And then I just want to close, again, by emphasizing we will be providing service for essential travel only. If you do not need to go out on Sunday in particular, please stay at home. There will be MBTA service, except on those lines I talked about. However, it will be a decreased level of service. We do want people to stay home if it is possible. So with that, I will close and invite MBTA, MEMA Deputy Director Pat Carnevale to address us. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you. Governor Baker, Secretary, GM Poptov, Colonel, thank you very much. Thank you for having me here to speak on behalf of MEMA's preparation for Henri with our local, state, and federal partners, and more importantly, we want the public to focus on preparedness for this storm. That is so critical, and that's very important to get that message out. At MEMA, we have activated the SEOC, State Emergency Operations Center. We've also activated their 2 regional offices, one in Tewksbury and one in Agawam, and those will be activated partially today and then fully on Saturday and Sunday. Opening these centers allows us to coordinate with the cities and towns, and that's the most important thing. That's the goal that we have, so that cities and towns have a way to access additional state and federal resources. We are in direct contact twice a day, actually, with the National Weather Service, so we're getting briefings in the morning and the afternoon, as everyone has said, to make sure the track seems to be wavering either way, so we're just making sure, and the Gov and everybody else is part of those calls. It's a whole team as part of these calls. So we're in constant contact with them in order to provide the best services and best information we can get. We're also working, as the governor mentioned, with Paul Ford, Regional Administrator of FEMA. Paul has been reaching out to us since Wednesday. We're in constant contact. FEMA is bringing in additional resources already that will be here pre-landfall. It's generators, tarps, food, water, just to mention a few things. For the public, our message is simple and reiterates the governor said. We need to take this storm seriously. Again, because of the track and the way it is, no one's 100% sure as to the track at this point. As we get more information, we'll continue to provide that information, but please take it seriously. And I guess just a few simple steps that we always go through at MEMA. First, stay informed. This is an evolving weather situation. Residents should monitor the forecast through the local media, sign up for your local reverse 911 if the community has one, and check to make sure your smartphone can receive emergency and public safety alert messages. Know your evacuation zone or in the area of floods. We'll see a variety of impacts from this storm. We're going to see, obviously, flooding, we're going to see wind damage, we're going to see storm surge. So please, make sure you know if this is an area that you've been impacted in the past, and be aware of what you have available to you. Prepare for flooding. Obviously, we've gone over that several times, but we're going to get heavy rains, and those rains, I truly believe, will be across the Commonwealth. We've already received a great deal, as I said, yesterday, and in the western part of the state, we've received additional rains earlier in the week. So please, be prepared for the flooding. Power outages. These outages are going to be across the Commonwealth. As the governor said, anywhere from 100 to 300,000 people impacted. Yes, we've brought in additional crews. Both utilities have been wonderful and are already supporting us. But be ready to be prepared for that. And then plan now for specialized medical needs. If you need or use medical equipment and requires electricity, or if you have specialized medical needs or treatments that may be impacted by the storm, contact your medical provider or caregivers to discuss your situation and plan for your care needs before, during, and after the storm. And finally, I guess I would close this, and this is really important, be a good neighbor. Check on that person next to you, especially if you know that they might be in a difficult situation. That I would emphasize the most. And then in closing, for preparedness tips, please visit our website, mass.gov/MEMA. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Pat. So the shorthand is, Sunday really should be a stay-at-home day for everybody who can make it one.
Governor, what would be your message to folks? I mean, it is, after all, a weekend in August. There are a lot of people planning vacations. There are a lot of people leaving from vacation. There are going to be a lot of people who think maybe this is just kind of a one-day thing. I can get around it. And I know you say you don't want people stuck on bridges and that sort of thing, but is that kind of inevitable?
Well, I guess I'd say two things. The first is most of the rentals that I'm aware of usually flip on Saturdays. I think it's important, if they do flip on Saturdays, that people get whatever they need to get done on that day. Some of the other stuff, particularly that involves short-term rentals and that kind of stuff through some of the online sites, people should be able to make adjustments, and they should try. I think the big thing we're most worried about here is you are talking about a storm that, depending upon where you are in Massachusetts, people have said could dump somewhere between 4 to 8 inches worth of rain in a very short period of time. And we've already had significant rain over the course of this month, and we had really significant rain just yesterday in certain parts of Massachusetts. I think the thing we're most concerned about is if people don't take this seriously, don't understand the size and significance of this particular weather pattern, they could end up in a very bad spot. We will have assets, whether it's the Guard or the State Police or the emergency management folks, stationed all over the Commonwealth to help people deal with that. But in particular, the reason we focused on the Cape is there is a lot of traffic every weekend back and forth as people come on and off it for vacation purposes. We would like to see everybody get as much of that done on Saturday as they possibly can. I really do think Sunday is going to be a very difficult day for people to do that sort of thing. And if they can't get it done on Saturday, we would urge them to try and find a way to do it on Monday. And the bridge obviously comes with a whole series of complexities because it's incredibly narrow, and it's really hard, if we had to get emergency vehicles on and off that thing if it's crowded.
Can you put some of this in historical perspective for us? I go back long enough to remember the Presidential Tower kind of swaying during Gloria when I worked up there, and we had Bob, but it's been a long time since we've had a hurricane in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I think that's part of the reason why we're all emphasizing this idea that we need to take it seriously. It has been a long time since we've had a storm like this one. Several people were talking yesterday about Bob. And I think what I would say is when you're talking about this kind of potential for downfalls with respect to rain, 4 to 8 inches in one dump is basically a month's worth in many cases. I mean, we're talking a lot of water. And the second thing I would say is, we haven't seen a lot of 50 and 60 mile an hour short-term gusts, much less sustained gusts, for a really long time. And the pattern on this may change, but it's pretty clear that this one's not going to clip us. I mean, what people have said about this route so far is it looks like it's going to come up through Newport, maybe veer a little bit west in the general direction of Worcester, and then cut right up toward the Merrimack Valley. That's a huge swath of the Commonwealth that's going to be right in the middle of this thing. And I think that's part of the reason why what we would really urge everybody to do is to try to arrange their affairs in such a way so that they are in one place with shelter and hopefully food and electricity from sort of, the beginning of Sunday through Monday.
Do you anticipate the need to close the bridges this weekend? Is that something you would do if need be?
Those are the Army Corps, that is the Army Corps' decision. We don't expect so far with the winds that are projected that it would reach that point, but that is absolutely something we're going to have to watch. And again, the concern that the governor expressed, which is if there are backups or if there's traffic going over the bridge, could present an unsafe situation, and we're asking people to avoid it, even if it doesn't get to the point of needing a closure.
I think a lot of the people who live in Massachusetts have never experienced a real hurricane. I know I was 17 years old, Bob. I don't know if anybody can go over what people should do to prepare, how it might be different than a snowstorm or even a tropical storm. I mean, there are significant.
You want to speak to that?
Sure. Yeah, I had mentioned a few things that we suggest you prepare, but also, again, I think going to the mass.gov. I mean, I think the critical things are the ones that I highlighted for everybody. Make sure you have food, water, anything electronic, make sure you have those available, charged. Another thing we talked about today, even our own state vehicles, make sure your vehicle has gas in it. I got a call right before this from a colleague asking about, can you tell us about ATM machines? Because if you lose power, don't forget, you're not getting into your ATM machine, you're not using your debit card. So those are just some things that I can think of that I could recommend. And again, if there's other thoughts or processes, we'll certainly make sure those are available on the website. But
And we could be talking days, right? And it covered Sandy in New York.
potentially, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, you want me to keep going? I mean, yeah, potentially, I think you can, because of the power outage and the widespread impact that it could have. And you have to remember, there's a lot of debris out there. These trees still have all their leaves and everything like that. So once that comes down, and the crews can't, let me emphasize this, they cannot start working until those wind is down to, I don't know what their regulations are, but until it's a reasonable safe. You're not going to send people out in dangerous situations. So we have to wait for that, first of all, and then start to address the needs. But then you got to clear debris, and we do have contractors for that as well as MassDOT and everybody else. But those are some of the issues I think you have to be concerned about.
And I'm sure you want people to be careful with generators, things along those lines.
Yeah, no, so many people hook up their generators but aren't hooked up properly. I'm
A
sorry.
little closer to the mic, I apologize.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you wanted the governor to talk. So, okay, thanks. Yeah, no, absolutely, your generator hookup, make sure that is, but even make sure, you bring up generators, make sure you have the fuel. You're not gonna get the fuel, and test those in advance, because you're right. We don't want the backfeed going back into the main lines, because that's how we lose people, and so make sure that's properly installed as well. That's a great,
Are Eversource and National Grid committed to having all hands on deck for this? I mean, they're gonna be bringing people in.
Do you want me to keep
from,
answering?
state.
Go ahead. The answer to that is yes. This is, the good news, to the extent there is some here, is people were starting to talk about how serious this could be several days ago. The conversations first began Tuesday and Wednesday. So Grid and Eversource and the folks at Unitel and the other municipal electricity everybody is very much on high alert associated with this and is putting infrastructure in various places around the Commonwealth. And some of this, some of the personnel assets associated with this will also be in southern New Hampshire, because they're going to be dealing with it up there too. But, the good news, to the extent there is some here, is that people did have an advance warning here. This isn't going to come as a huge surprise to any of the folks who normally work through the disruptions and the disturbances that come with this. If you have a flashlight, you should probably check and find out when the last time was to turn it on and determine if the batteries actually work. If you have almost anything that needs to be charged, you should charge it. But in addition to that, batteries, if you lose your power, you're going to lose your lights. And you should try and make sure you've got some ability to find your way around your apartment or your home.
I think a lot of people remember the flooding over by Aquarium.
Yep.
Just a few years ago. Is that what you're anticipating? I think those pictures are emblazoned in people's
Yeah.
minds.
The answer to that is yeah. when Steve Poftak talks about the Kenmore station and some of the issues associated with the Muddy River. I mean, we, as a Commonwealth, along with the federal government, have spent a lot of money to deal with some of the flood issues that are associated with the Muddy River, which flooded out Kenmore in a pretty big way before we put those resources to work over the course of several years. But if we really get the kind of rain people are talking about here, we could see issues not just there, but at a number of stations. I mean, I think part of the reason why you're shutting down the D line is related to wind and rain.
Wind.
Go ahead.
Wind. Yeah, for instance, with the D line, it allows us to deploy the Fenway portal, which has been built to protect that underground tunnel system. We also have concerns anywhere we have overhead catenary, so the green line, the blue line, the Mattapan line. Anywhere we have overhead catenary, you're susceptible if trees come down on it. We're not going to be in a position to fix it immediately. We're going to have to wait, as Pat noted, we're going to have to wait until the hurricane abates. And then there's also issues with flooding in various locations that we're concerned about.
Governor, could I ask you quickly about the mayor of Boston doing a mask mandate
Yep.
inside? I know you've said on many occasions, hey, locals, if you want to go for more than I want, fine. Are you considering any sort of an expansion of a mask mandate in the state?
With respect to public places?
Yeah.
No.
And what's your reaction to her decision on this?
Look, we've always said that, we establish what I think of as a framework, a statewide guidance, and if locals want to be more conservative than that, we've always said that that's okay. Whatever the issue is, but especially when you're talking about COVID, I mean, with a few exceptions, over the course of this thing from the beginning, many parts of Massachusetts have been in a different place at different times. And I think it's important to give locals the ability to make the decision on this stuff that they think makes the most sense for their communities. I've also said, and I continue to believe this is true because I look at the scoreboards on this every single day, we are still the second best vaccination state in the country, behind Vermont. We still have the second lowest hospitalization rate in the country. I think that's probably Vermont as well that has the lowest rate. And we continue to vaccinate a fairly significant number of people every single day, and we're going to keep doing that. We have roughly 40 or 50 back-to-school clinics that have signed up just over the course of the past few weeks, and had a bunch more that signed up before that. I mean, we're probably north of 100 clinics that are going to happen around back to school. So, I mean, I think we're doing many of the right things here, but locals should have, and I believe do have, the ability to go beyond what we propose.
On the other side of the coin, can you talk about the news from Commissioner Riley and about the administration's evolution?
Yeah. I mean, there's been an ongoing conversation between us and local officials, Commissioner Riley and the superintendents and other folks at the local level about back to school that's been, evolving for the past month or so. I think the decision that he's making, which is basically designed to ensure as clean an opening as you can possibly have to deal with any anxiety people may have as they return to school, and to create some serious incentives for middle and high school kids to get vaccinated, is an appropriate response.
Do you know how many districts have buildings that have hit that 80% or will have buildings when they open that have hit that 80% metric?
Well, the answer is sort of, but I can't give you a hard number on it. But what I would say is there are a lot of back-to-school vaccination clinics going on right now, and there are going to be a lot more between now and the middle of September. The other thing I'd point out is if you look at the vaccination rate for the 15 to 19-year-old population in Massachusetts, it's pretty close to 70% now. And I think we'll see a lot of kids sign up to get vaccinated in the coming weeks.
Last question. Can I just push on that? Commissioner Riley asked if the authority to mandate masks in school. You've been very clear. You want to leave that up to the locals.
Yep.
So what changed over the last couple of days?
Well, I said all along that we always make adjustments when we think we need to.
But you really haven't budged in the last
No, but I've always said at this time, too. I mean, those are constant conversations, and they evolve. And I think in this particular case, sort of in an abundance of caution, and to deal with any issues around anxiety that people might have about going back to school, and recognizing and understanding that we did make a strong recommendation for K through 6 because they don't have access to a vaccine, that we felt mass should be employed at that level. I think the commissioner felt this would give everybody sort of what I would describe as a common place to start the year, as well as some pretty heavy incentives for those who can get vaccinated to get vaccinated, which I want to see more people get vaccinated too. It really is the only way out of this.
Governor, yesterday you announced the mandate of state employees.
Yep.
Executive office must get vaccinated. Your thoughts behind that, rationale behind that, and do you have any idea how many state employees who fall in that are already vaccinated?
Well, we have, I mean, between contractors and state employees, we probably have about 44,000 people we're talking about here. And our vaccination rate, not surprisingly, is pretty consistent with the state's vaccination rate. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 70 to 75%. More in some places, less in others. I think for us, as an employer, the conversation was basically about, first of all, safety for our workforce and for many people who work for state government come in a lot of regular contact in the course of their work with others. And I think from that point of view, having our folks vaccinated would be good for them and good for the people that they come in contact with. In addition to that, I think, I've been saying for a long time that the vaccines work. At this point, we have 400 million shots that have been delivered. Almost 200 million people in the U.S. have been vaccinated, fully vaccinated. And if you just look at the data, the 10 states with the highest vaccination rates have the lowest case counts per capita, the lowest hospitalization rates per capita, and the lowest death rates per capita. And the 10 states with the lowest vaccination rates have exactly the opposite. They have the highest of all three. These vaccines have proven to be enormously effective at preventing hospitalization and death. And I think it's critical that employers, of which we are one, do everything we possibly can to get our folks vaccinated for their own safety and for the safety of the people we deal with every day.
But you didn't feel you could go ahead and do all state employees? You just stuck with your division here, the executive branch?
The way we framed this was around what I would describe as the folks that actually operate within the jurisdiction of the executive branch. The legislature's got to make whatever they think is the right decision for themselves. I think Steve's folks, he's sort of in but not of the executive branch. I think you guys basically said you're going to adopt a similar standard.
We have a policy that's consistent with the executive branch at this point.
And we've obviously made clear to a lot of the other independents that we would like them to adopt this policy.
So does the mandate apply to state police and correctional officers?
Yeah.
POC?
Yeah,
Those correctional officers are pushing that
yeah.
already. Any comment on that?
I mean, obviously, we're going to work with them. I would much rather find a way for everybody to get vaccinated than to have the alternative happen. But I think it's important for people to get vaccinated. I mean, one of the reasons we chose to go with a vaccination as opposed to, a regular testing thing or vaccination was, there's been a lot written about the fact that when you have the regular testing option, people don't get vaccinated. People are tired of the pandemic, and I completely get and understand that. I mean, it's been a really long, rough, tough period filled with all kinds of awful things. There are definitely some positives. But one thing that's abundantly clear at this point is the way out of this, most fundamentally, is to get everybody vaccinated. And if that means employers need to push a little bit to get their people vaccinated, I think that's appropriate.
Your thinking has really evolved on this, because so many times you told us, I'm not going to be in the position of forcing that choice on someone, and now we're at another place.
So when you guys asked me about this back at the beginning of May, there were a lot of people who maybe not even were eligible to get vaccinated at that point, or if they were, it was sort of right on the cusp of when they did become eligible. And we didn't have, at that point in time, anywhere near the kind of clear-cut evidence that we have at this point about what the difference between being highly vaccinated and not highly vaccinated looks like. You know, we have, I'm just doing the math here. I won't get it right, so I'm not gonna try to do it off the top of my head. But I just go back to the point I made about, if you just look at the national scoreboards on a state-by-state basis, the difference between states with high vaccination rates and states with low vaccinations rates in terms of the prevalence and the danger and the severity of COVID, it's extraordinary. And, you know, 4 months ago, we didn't have that kind of information. We do now. And as this thing evolves, and I don't think anybody knows anymore about exactly how it will evolve, the one thing I'm pretty sure about is that everybody who gets vaccinated is going to be in a far better place than the people who don't. So let's do all we can to try to get as many people vaccinated as we possibly can.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy your weekend and stay home on Sunday. I don't want to see any of you, you know, with the thing on the side of your head standing out in front of,
That's where we're gonna be.
yeah, okay. I'll see you guys later.